Emergency crews rescue stranded locals as flood waters inundate Melbourne homes and streets.
The flooding emergency was the worst in Victoria, where on Friday morning, rapidly rising waters swamped the Maribyrnong suburb of Melbourne, forcing evacuations. More details on this later in the news. Good evening. I'm CJ Hero.
And I am Nina Richie Alago Flores. This is Mata ng Agila International. And now for the headlines. Tropical Depression Neneng slightly intensifies as it decelerates to Philippine Sea. Government alerts its agencies in preparation for the typhoon's onslaught. President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. rejects resignation calls for Justice Secretary Jesus Crispin Remulla over the drug arrest of his eldest son. Juvenile gunman kills 5 on forest trail in Raleigh, North Carolina. NATO warns Russia against using nuclear weapons in its war against Ukraine. And WHO emergency panel meets to discuss whether to continue or not the highest level alarm on COVID-19 pandemic.
There's an issue with generating enough alerts.
Tropical Depression Neneng slightly intensifies as it decelerates towards the Philippine Sea. According to Pag-asa, Neneng is located 795 kilometers east of Calayan, Cagayan. It is packed with maximum sustained winds of 55 kilometers per hour near the center and gustiness of up to 70 kilometers per hour. Neneng continues to move west-southwestward at a speed of 10 kilometers per hour. Tropical cyclone wind signal number 1 is raised in the following areas: Batanes, Cagayan Province including Babuyan Islands, the eastern portions of Apayao, and the northern portion of Isabela. The tropical cyclone will turn west-northwestward on Sunday, and it makes landfall or may pass very close to Babuyan Islands or Batanes area on Sunday morning or afternoon before it exits the Philippine area of responsibility by Monday. Meanwhile, Pag-asa continues to monitor Tropical Storm Songka, which is located outside Par at 485 kilometers of northwest of Pag-asa Islands, Palawan.
President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. has alerted concerned government agencies in preparation for the onslaught of Typhoon Depression Neneng. During his speech at the 8th Annual Balik Scientist Program Convention of the Department of Science and Technology, President Marcos said he is closely monitoring the DOST Pag-asa's forecast of the typhoon. Tropical Depression Neneng is expected to make landfall on Sunday in Batanes. More than 10,000 individuals would possibly be affected by the weather disturbance. Marcos said the DSWD has placed on standby relief goods for distribution in areas that will be affected by Tropical Depression Neneng. Malacanang has also alerted the Armed Forces of the Philippines, the Philippine National Police, the National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Council, the Department of Public Works and Highways, and other government instrumentalities in case there will be a need for rescue and clearing operations.
But in terms of relief goods, in terms of material, in terms of assets, we have put them as close as possible to the possible, dun sa track na forecast ng ating Pag-asa, so that makapasok sila kagad when the time comes. The estimate now is that 10,000 people will be affected by this Neneng. So that is what we are those are the kind of numbers that we are preparing for.
Pag-asa forecasts Typhoon Neneng will only reach a tropical storm category, but not brushing the possibility of extending rain showers until Monday. Vin Pascua has the details.
State Weather Agency Pag-asa is not brushing aside the possible recurrence of a rapid intensification scenario of a typhoon, just like what happened to the onslaught of Typhoon Karding, which brought massive flooding and damaging agricultural lands and properties. In a press briefing at Pag-asa, Weather Service Chief Juanito Galang said it is more likely that Typhoon Neneng would be in a tropical storm category. But he said it is possible that rain showers will be experienced until Monday next week.
Yung rapid intensification sa ngayon within the next 1 to 2 days, hindi po natin nakikita. Pero yung possibility dahil yung atmosphere natin ay napaka-dynamic, nandun pa rin po yung ganong possibility.
However, because of the existing high-pressure area in the northern part of the country, there is a possible change in its forecast track.
Yung sa pagbabaan po ng track niya, makikita po natin sa general track niya medyo bababa talaga siya dahil sa epekto na rin ng high-pressure area sa north ng Bagyo.
Moreover, Pag-asa Deputy Administrator for Research and Development Esperanza Cayanan said that the possibility of storm surge in small islands is very low.
Hindi ganon ito magdudulot ng mga mataas na storm surge. So pero hindi po ibig sabihin yan na wala pong mga malalakas na pag-alon ang ma-observe dito. Meron pa rin pong malalakas na alon or pwedeng tumaas din. Pero hindi po storm surge yung dahilan nito or daluyong. Dahil pag storm surge po or daluyong, ang intensity ng ating bagyo ay nasa typhoon intensity. Mas malakas na hangin ang kailangan at mababang atmospheric pressure para makapagdulot ng storm surge.
Meanwhile, Pag-asa is monitoring the guidelines for the declaration of the Northeast Monsoon.
May mga criteria tayong sinusunod para ma-declare itong Northeast Monsoon o yung amihan talaga. And then minomonitor din natin, kasama dyan sa minomonitor natin itong mga temperature dito sa may Northern Luzon area. And then bukod doon, may tinitingnan din natin yung mga posisyon ng ibang weather system na hindi lang dito sa atin, kundi pati dito sa may part ng China hanggang dito sa may Pacific Ocean, may mga posisyon ng mga weather system na tinitingnan natin for declaration ng Northeast Monsoon o nitong amihan.
I am Vin Pascua reporting for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
2 individuals were reportedly killed in the onslaught of Typhoon Depression Maymay in a large part of Luzon. Data from the National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Council, or NDRRMC, said the 2 casualties are both from Cagayan who died of drowning. The victims include a 52-year-old man from Bugue, Cagayan, and another 47-year-old man from Santa Ana, Cagayan. The agency also reported that more than 6,000 families, or 23,000 individuals, were affected by the typhoon in Region 2, Calabarzon, and Cordillera Administrative Region. 150 families or 414 individuals are sheltered in evacuation centers, while 243 families or 371 individuals chose to live with their relatives. Classes are still suspended in 102 schools in the affected region. More than $500,000 peso worth of food packs have been distributed by the government to affected residents.
A lawmaker is not in favor of proposals to exempt basic commodities from the value-added tax, or VAT. Let's find out why in this report by Mean Corvera.
Senator Amy Marcos is opposing proposals to scrap the value-added tax, or VAT, on basic commodities to address inflation or the high cost of basic needs. There are pending bills in the House of Representatives seeking to exempt the basic commodities from VAT, such as bread, sugar, and cooking oil, to help consumers and businesses. Marcos said the proposal should be studied further on fears that the government coffers would be suffer if foods will be exempted from VAT. The lady senator added she understands that 60% of every family's income were allotted to food due to the inflation, but this would affect the tax collection of the government. If this would happen, government cannot fund its program for financial assistance and other services to the public.
Ang mahirap sa pagkain, sa food inflation, ang tinatamaan, swak na swak sa mahirap. Kasi napakalaking porsyento ng kanilang gastos ay napupunta sa pagkain at pagkain lamang. Puro palengke, puro grocery, doon talaga nauuwi. So, ang sinasabing tanggalin yung VAT, pag-aralan natin, ako yung sinasabi ko noon, yung mga excise tax sa fuel. Yung VAT, medyo tansyahin natin maigi. Pagkat ang problema dyan, wala nang koleksyon yung gobyerno. Tapos, hihiyaw naman ng mga tao na wala namang ayuda, wala nang AIX, wala nang SAP, wala nang gamot, wala nang vaccine, at eto na naman tayo. Kaya't dapat balanse, no? Konting balanse sa mga kilos natin at i-compute natin ng maigi magkano ba talaga nakokolekta, baka hindi naman sulit.
She also feared that the proposal would not directly benefit the poor families but those affluent in the society.
Hindi naman big time bumili ang maliliit at mahihirap. Kaya't baka ang makinabang yung mayayaman pa rin at wala ring epekto sa mga mahihirap na kailangan tulungan. So I think there has to be a more nuanced approach, highly targeted approach. Tanggal tayo ng tanggal ng buwis. Halimbawa, tapos magugulat na lang tayo, wala na tayong koleksyon, wala na tayong pera, wala na tayong pambigay sa iba't ibang mga sektor.
One of her suggestions to address the problem is the intensification of Kadiwa stores nationwide, which was a project of his father. Affordable products and not marketed in the provinces are brought to a facility in FTI Bikutan, and from there, the product will be distributed in major markets in Metro Manila.
Kadiwa revival. In many cases, there's a great deal of inequity in the distribution of food. Tinatapon namin, sa halimbawa, sa Norte, sa Ilocos Norte, sa Benguet, sa Kalinga, tinatapon ang gulay. Hindi mabenta ang gulay sa Bukidnon at sa Jensan. Ngunit sa Manila, ang mamahal, kulang-kulang pa. So I think we should help in the distribution. So we've bought trucks with Kadiwa. We've tried to distribute what we can distribute that's locally available. If you recall, Kadiwa is one of our legacy projects.
Mean Corvera reporting for Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
The Department of Social Welfare and Development, or DSWD, has stood by the Commission on Audit, or COA, report that 90% of the Pantawid Pamilyang Pilipino program, or 4Ps, beneficiaries remain poor. DSWD Assistant Secretary Romel Lopez said the COA report based its statistics from the DSWD submission. Lopez said the agency is willing to present itself to the evaluation of the Joint Congressional Oversight Committee and lay down measures to improve the implementation of the program.
Yun nga lang po, nais din po namin ipabatid sa ating mga kababayan, nakalulungkot man po yung numero na nakita natin, nababasa natin, may malaking epekto po rito yung nangyari po natin na COVID-19 pandemic. Pagkat hindi lang naman po sa Pilipinas, hindi lang po sa ibang bansa, kundi sa iba't ibang aspeto po ng pamumuhay nating mga kababayan natin, ay naapektuhan ng COVID-19. So alisin po natin halimbawa kunwari ang COVID-19 pandemic, baka po mas magandang numero ngayon yung nakikita natin. Kaya nga we cannot discount the effect ng ating pandemic dito po sa numerong ito. Pero naniniwala po yung DSWD na yung 4Ps program, Pantawid Pamilyang Pilipino program, ay nananatiling epektibo po in poverty alleviation.
Based on the performance audit report of COA, 3.8 million out of the 4.2 million beneficiaries, or 90% of those enrolled in the program, remain to live in poverty despite receiving government financial aid for almost 7 years. Lopez said the DSWD continues its efforts to cleanse the list of 4Ps beneficiaries. Out of the 1.3 million that need to be delisted, revalidation showed that more than 700,000 should remain and 500,000 others are graduating from the program.
The Commission on Elections will resume its voter registration in the last week of November in relation to the Barangay and Sangguniang Kabataan elections, or BSKE. COMELEC Chairman George Garcia said the voter registration would last until the last week of May 2023. The BSKE was moved to the last Monday of October 2023. The BSKE set for December this year will not push through following President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. signing off the law postponing the said electoral process.
President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. said he sees no basis for a call to resign on Justice Secretary Jesus Crispin Remulla over the drug arrest of his eldest son. Eden Santos has the details.
Justice Secretary Jesus Crispin Remulla continues to enjoy the trust and confidence of President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. This amid reports of his son's involvement in a 1.3 million peso drug bust in Las Piñas by operatives of the Philippine Drug Enforcement Agency or PDEA. In an interview with reporters this morning, President Marcos shrugged off calls for Remulla to resign. Marcos said he sees no reason for Remulla to step down and defended the Justice Secretary for doing his job properly.
I think the calls for him to resign have no basis. You call for somebody to resign if he's not doing his job.
Marcos added that Remulla's response to his son's case was correct and according to his mandate. In a written statement, Remulla said he will not intervene nor will influence on his son's predicament.
He has not done any of that, quite the contrary. He has taken the very proper position that he is recusing himself from any involvement in the case of his son.
Eden Santos reporting for Matanang Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Coming up, 5 dead in shooting in Raleigh, North Carolina. Pyongyang fighter planes fly near border. Seoul scrambles jets in return. And World Health Organization emergency panel debates COVID pandemic. Mata ng Agila International will be right back after this short break.
Pamamaraan para tayo ay magkaroon ng extra income. Mahalaga sa panahong ito na may iba tayong pinagkukunan ng kabuhayan para di na tayo kinakabahan pagdating ng petsa de peligro. For today's video, let us look into different ways on taking a side hustle that even promotes better well-being through all-natural products. Let's be open for business with One Opti and build your wealth through health.
Sa panahon po kasi ngayon, napaka-importante po ng kalusugan. Kasi po, di ba may kasabihan po tayo, health is wealth. Kaya nga sinasabing, prevention is better than cure. Gagamitin mo, gagawin mo siya, hanggat wala ka pang sakit. Para sa akin po, ang pinakamalawak na negosyo sa panahon ngayon, ay walang iba kundi regarding po sa health.
Open for business with Cesar Vallejos, Sunday, 9 p.m.
Parang kinikilig ka. Crush ko yan eh. Ano yan?
Pwede magtanong ng personal?
Ano yan?
Kayo pa ba ni Juliet?
Why would you ask that?
May nakita kasi kay Juliet na galing kina Abok.
Ano yung narinig ko na doon ka natulog kay Abok last night?
I can explain.
This portion
Welcome back to Mata ng Agila International. A shooting rampage in Raleigh, North Carolina has left at least 5 people dead, including an off-duty police officer. At least 4 others are being treated in the hospital for gunshot wounds. Among the wounded was a K-9 officer. His injuries are not life-threatening. Police say the shooting occurred just before the supper hour near a popular walking trail in a residential area. About 4 hours later, a suspect was taken into custody after being contained in a residence. Few details have been released.
11 people are dead and several others are seriously injured after a bus exploded in the West African nation of Mali. The blast occurred in a region that has been regularly rocked by jihadist violence. Mali is struggling with a long jihadist insurgency that has claimed thousands of lives and forced hundreds of thousands of people from their homes. Mines and improvised explosive devices are among the insurgents' weapons of choice. They can explode or impact or on impact or be detonated remotely.
At least 10 children were killed and 3 others were missing in Cambodia after a boat that was ferrying them home from an English class sank in the Mekong River, according to police. According to a local police chief, the overloaded small boat sank about 50 meters from its destination in southeastern Kandal province after it began taking on water. The report says victims were aged between 12 and 15, counting 10 of them as dead, while 3 others are still missing in the water. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Hun expressed his condolences and reminded people to be cautious during heavy floods that raised the level of water in the Mekong.
Flash floods drowned hundreds of homes in southeastern Australia, with waterlogged residents now facing a nerve-wracking wait to assess the damage. A major flooding emergency and forced evacuations were instantly declared in Victoria due to the rapid rising of water. The State Emergency Service said it had carried out 108 flood rescues in Victoria in the past 48 hours. Cars left on the streets of the suburb were almost completely swallowed by the floods, while some stranded residents had to be saved by inflatable rescue boats. While the worst of the rain had passed by late Friday morning, the State Emergency Service warned the floods would get worse as water flowed downstream into swollen river catchments. Flood waters in Melbourne had started receding Friday afternoon, but the worst was to come for other parts of the state. Authorities said about 4,000 homes in Shepparton could be flooded by early next week. Officials stated that 4,700 homes were without power. Police said that they found a body of a 46-year-old man in his submerged car in flood water near the New South Wales city of Bathurst. Emergency Management Commissioner Andrew Crisp said the Australian Army was being deployed to help residents sandbag their houses. Australia's east coast has been repeatedly lashed by heavy rainfall in the past 2 years, driven by back-to-back La Nina cycles. Climate change does not cause La Nina events, but scientists believe it could make periods of flooding more extreme because warmer air holds more moisture.
A warning from NATO's leader to Russian President Vladimir Putin: do not deploy nuclear weapons in your battle with Ukraine. NATO chief Jens Stoltenberg says if Russia uses nuclear weapons, the consequences will be severe. Stoltenberg also says Putin should tone down his tough talk.
Putin's nuclear rhetoric is dangerous and irresponsible. We take these threats seriously, and we remain vigilant. We will not be intimidated.
Stoltenberg adds that Russia is isolated and the world stands in support of Ukraine.
Nearly a dozen Pyongyang fighter planes flew close to the border with the South, prompting Seoul to scramble F-35A jets in response, Yonhap reported. 10 fighters had been detected flying 25 kilometers north of the inter-Korean border between 10:30 p.m. Thursday and 12:20 a.m. Friday local time, according to South Joint Chiefs of Staff. The northern jets crossed a Seoul-set reconnaissance line and triggers an automatic operational response from the south. JCS said Pyongyang also fired some 170 artillery shots into waters off its east and west coasts, violating a maritime buffer zone agreed upon in a 2018 deal. But North Korea's military said its latest actions came in response to a provocative South Korean artillery exercise near the border. Meanwhile, Seoul's National Security Council condemned what it described as a barrage of hostile actions overnight, warning in a statement that such provocations will bring consequences. The United States also criticized Pyongyang's actions, saying that, like the many other recent launches, the North was in violation of multiple UN sanctions.
Russian President Vladimir Putin dismissed comments from his French counterpart Emmanuel Macron that Moscow was destabilizing the peace process between Armenia and Azerbaijan. Macron also accused Russia of seeking to create disorder in the Caucasus.
Изъявление прочитал вчера некоторые комментарии президента Франции по поводу результатов встречи в Праге 6 октября. Считаю, что эти заявления, у них отсутствует понимание самого хода конфликта и отсутствие.
There will be an opportunity to discuss this with Macron, Putin said during a meeting of leaders of Commonwealth of Independent States members in Kazakhstan. Putin also invited the leaders of Armenia and Azerbaijan to Russia for talks at any time in any place, adding that Russia has always sincerely sought to resolve any conflicts, including issues related to Karabakh.
The World Health Organization's COVID-19 Emergency Committee discusses if the pandemic still warrants the highest level of alarm the UN Health Agency can sound. Last time it concluded that the pandemic still constitutes a public health emergency of international concern, or PHEIC, the WHO's highest level of alert. WHO Chief Dr. Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus says the world is in a very different situation now from where it was 33 months ago when the committee recommended the declaration of PHEIC. The health agency's COVID-19 technical lead says the virus is still circulating at an incredibly intense level around the world. There were more than 3 million reported cases last week. This number is an underestimate as testing and reporting rates have dropped off. More than 618 million COVID cases and over 6.5 million deaths have been reported to the WHO. WHO has declared 2 other PHEICs, which are still ongoing. One on poliovirus, first declared in May 2014, and monkeypox declared in July this year.
A Chinese state media hinted that the strict zero-COVID policy of the government would continue amid widespread hopes of relaxation of strategy among the Chinese public and observers abroad. China is the last major economy still trying to stamp out COVID-19 within its borders through a series of harsh measures that include snap lockdowns, mass testing, and travel restrictions. Earlier, the Communist Party flagship mouthpiece, the People's Daily newspaper, claimed lying flat has no way out, referring to a slang term for relaxation popular among Chinese youth. It argued loosening restrictions would overwhelm China's medical system and lead to further mutations of the virus. Meanwhile, Chinese chief epidemiologist Wu Zunyu says China must stick with the zero-COVID policy because the strategy has proven scientific and efficacious. Wu explained that over the past 3 years, there have been over 300 local outbreaks in China caused by imported cases. All of them were put under control. Thus, facts have proven that the dynamic zero-COVID policy has been scientific and efficacious, which suits China's actual situation, he said. China is currently facing its worst nationwide cases since early September after it reported its first incidence of the BF.7 Omicron subvariant, which caused the spiraling outbreak in the northern region of Inner Mongolia with 4,000 cases on Wednesday. Next up, oil refinery workers in France protest for higher pay. Indonesia task force wants FA chief to resign over stadium disaster. And former U.S. President Donald Trump subpoenaed to testify before January 6 Capitol riot investigation. Find out more about these stories when Mata ng Agila International returns.
si Nikki Valdez.
Hello, Shay! Hello! Galing itong Nikki mag-bake na eh.
Dream come true ko.
Dream come true dahil kay Chef San.
Magluluto po ako ng mga oven-baked recipes kasama si Chef Sandy Daza at Patty. Dito lang yan sa Lutong Daza, every Saturday at 11 a.m. on Net 25.
Panalo tayo pag together, walang talo pag together. Let's stand together sa Net 25.
Sa new season natin dito sa masayang Net 25, dadagdagan na tayo ng host, Yuki Takahashi, Diana Meneses.
Ang mga tara-gamers na maglalaban-laban ngayong gabi.
Sino si Abok?
Hanapin mo na lang yung pinakagwapo.
Ba't parang ayaw mo? wala na ba kayo makukuha? Yan, Empoy. Linis-linis ka muna dyan. Empoy, ito po yun.
Bakit po?
I'm your Tara Game Master, Aga Bulak. And this is Tara Game! Agad! Agad!
Level up!
The lineups at gasoline stations in some parts of France are nearly a kilometer long, and the patience of motorists is wearing thin as they wait to fill their fuel tanks. Oil refinery workers in France have been on strike now for 3 weeks, demanding higher pay. The walkout has paralyzed 6 of the country's 7 refineries, leading to shortages of gasoline and diesel. The problem has been made worse by panic buying from drivers. Some motorists say they have had to wait for up to 2 hours just to fill up. The government plans to order some workers back to their jobs. Employees who refuse risk fines and jail time.
2 French unions announced a tentative pay rise agreement with oil giant Total Energies following emergency negotiations to end a 3-week strike that has emptied the country's petrol stations and sparked a wider backlash to the rising cost of living. Under pressure from the government to resolve the 18-day crisis, the oil group met with 4 unions at its headquarters in the suburbs of Paris.
On n'était pas toujours d'accord. Mais globalement, on a eu des discussions apaisées et très très riches. Et donc maintenant, on est dans une position d'avoir, on a soumis un accord pour signature avant midi.
Yet the hard-left CGT union, which initiated the industrial action, walked out of the meeting and vowed to return to striking. Denouncing the negotiations as a charade, CGT Representative Alexis Antonioli said Total Energies' proposals were largely insufficient. Antonioli said the negotiations will not do anything to change the determination or outlook of the strikers. CGT said it was not only pushing for higher wages for railway workers, but also wanted to signal anger at the government's intervention. Facing frustrated businesses and an increasingly alarmed public, Emmanuel Macron's administration has invoked emergency powers to compel some striking refinery workers back to their jobs. The French leader has also pledged a return to normal in the course of the coming week, dismissing the idea of nationwide strikes scheduled also for next week.
A top minister said the task force investigating a stadium tragedy that killed 132 people in Indonesia has called on the country's Football Association chief to resign. The report handed to President Joko Widodo said technically the government cannot intervene in PSSI, but in a country based on morals, ethics and great culture, it is recommended the PSSI head and all the executive committee members resign as the form of responsibility, referring of course to the Football Association. Indonesia's chief security minister, Mahfud MD, said the incident was more harrowing than previously known, based on CCTV footage from 32 cameras reviewed by the team. The 124-page report also blamed other football stakeholders, including Arema FC, accusing them of negligence. In response to the disaster, Widodo suspended all football matches until the investigation was complete and ordered a safety review of all stadiums.
The committee investigating the January 6, 2020 riot at the U.S. Capitol has voted to subpoena former President Donald Trump to testify about his involvement in the violence. Committee Chairman Benny Thompson says the committee demands a full accounting of the events of that day and is therefore obliged or obligated to seek Trump's testimony. He would have to testify under oath. The committee has subpoenaed more than 1,000 people, and only a few have declined to comply. Trump denounced the subpoena on his Truth Social platform. He asks why he wasn't asked to testify months ago and why the committee waited until the final moments to seek his testimony. He called the committee a total bust, adding it has only served to further divide the country.
Most Venezuelan migrants trying to enter the United States from Mexico will be sent back. Under an arrangement announced this week, all Venezuelans who try to walk or swim into the U.S. will have to return to Mexico. The number of Venezuelans seeking to reach the U.S. has soared amid an implosion of the economy in the leftist-ruled South American country. The deal mirrors a controversial push by former President Donald Trump to keep Central Americans fleeing poverty and violence inside Mexico while their claims are processed. But President Joe Biden's administration says it will also let some 24,000 Venezuelans enter lawfully if they have support in the United States and pass vetting. According to UN figures, nearly 6 million Venezuelans have fled their country, with 2.4 million in neighboring Colombia.
Electronic monitoring of employees by employers, especially during the rise of the work-from-home setup due to the COVID-19 pandemic, has raised privacy security concerns. In an effort to keep things transparent in the workplace, the province of Ontario in Canada puts in effect a law that makes employers accountable if they covertly track employees digitally. Joshua Santillana reports.
Ontario has put into effect their electronic monitoring policy for businesses and workplaces earlier this week. Employees all over Ontario are now able to know if their employers are tracking their digital activities. Since the start of the pandemic initiated a remote or hybrid work environment, many employees became aware of the potential tracking of their digital activities, with many employers left wondering if their employees are working efficiently from home. Many businesses and companies rely on electronic monitoring to track employee progress from home. Electronic monitoring poses several privacy and cybersecurity concerns for many. Because of this, the Ontario government is now requiring all employers with 25 or more workers to provide a written policy for their employees on electronic monitoring. The policy must outline whether or not the business monitors their employees, how and in what circumstances they are monitored, the reason as to why they are collecting information, the date of when the policy is applicable, and when changes are made. Although the new law does not forbid electronic monitoring, the hope is that the policy will provide more transparency between employers and employees. Joshua Santillana, Toronto, Ontario, Mataan ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Public schools in the United States receive millions of additional funding to upgrade food service equipment. This is part of the campaign against food insecurity in the country by helping provide nutritious breakfast and lunch meals to millions of American school children. Summer Esguerra reports.
$50 million in additional grants have been awarded to schools to invest in new food service equipment aimed to help continue serving nutritious meals to children. The $50 million funding adds to the $30 million in equipment grants given to schools by the Biden-Harris administration earlier this year. This announcement comes as USDA stands with partners and advocates in the child nutrition community to celebrate National School Lunch Week, which is October 10 to 14. The Agriculture Department says this is a time to recognize the critical nutrition that school meals provide to tens of millions of children every school day. Agriculture Secretary Tom Vilsack says ensuring access to nutritious school meals is one of the best investments that can be made in the fight to end child hunger and improve health. He says the additional resources will allow schools to provide healthy, appealing meals by meeting vital food service equipment needs. USDA says school districts can use the funds to purchase upgraded equipment that will support serving healthier meals, including those sourced from local foods, implementing scratch cooking, establishing or expanding school breakfast, storing fresh food, and improving food safety. Summer Esquera, Pensacola, Florida, Mata ng Agila, trusted, connected, on point.
Reporters and social media users spreading fake news will now be charged up to 3 years with the recently approved Turkey's pre-election law. The new rules secure the government's firm stand on the media 8 months before President Recep Tayyip Erdogan enters general election polls. For its part, the Council of Europe sees the unclear definition of disinformation would possibly lead to a chilling effect and increase of self-censorship, not at least in view of the upcoming elections in June 2023. Meanwhile, a lawmaker from the secular CHP party smashed his mobile phone using a hammer to show how freedom of expression was destroyed, especially by the minors who hold the future of the nation.
The man who shot and killed 17 people at his former Florida high school has been spared the death penalty, but he will spend the rest of his life in prison. In February 2018, 24-year-old Nicolas Cruz walked into the school with a semi-automatic rifle and gunned down 3 staff members and 14 students. He wounded more than a dozen more during his 9-minute shooting rampage. Cruz had been expelled from the school a year earlier for disciplinary reasons. Now his lawyer urged the jury to show compassion and not sentence his client to death. He told them Cruz was born with fetal alcohol stress disorder and was eventually put up for adoption. Following the sentencing, Ilan Al-Hadef, whose daughter Elisa was killed by Cruz, expressed his anger.
I'm disgusted. I'm disgusted with the system. That you can allow 17 dead and 17 others shot and wounded and not give the death penalty. What do we have the death penalty for? What is the purpose of it?
Coming up, TwitchCon returns after a 3-year hiatus. Japanese yen touches 32-year low against the US dollar. And President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. praises E.J. Obiena. You've got more stories coming from around the globe. Please stay tuned.
Alam namin ang iyong pagsisikap. Dama namin ang iyong mga sakripisyo. Kita namin ang pagharap mo sa bawat pagsubok. Kaya sa kabila ng mga hamon ng buhay, nandito kami para umalalay. Kasi katulad mo, gusto rin namin ang magandang bukas para sa kanya. Hatid namin ang dekalidad na edukasyon at makabagong pasilidad sa abot kayang halaga. Kaya huwag ka na mangamba. Sasamahan ka namin tuparin ang mga pangarap niya. Maaasahan mong sulit dito ang mga pinagsikapan mo. Sa aming mga makabagong pasilidad at sistema ng edukasyon. Mailalabas natin ang aking talino at mga kakayahan niya. Kahit sa munting halaga, makakasiguro ka na makakasabay siya sa mabilis na pag-ikot ng mundo. Sa New Era, karamay mo kami sa bawat hamon. Kaagapay mo kami sa bawat hakbang. Kasama mo kami sa bawat ngiti at tagumpay.
Hello, this is Ajay. Please watch me on Letters and Music on air and online this Saturday from 1 to 2 p.m. Only here on Net25. See you!
The border wall placed along the U.S.-Mexican border was built to prevent animals from migrating, but conservationists say it is not healthy to hinder wildlife from moving between natural habitats. Activists from the United States and Mexico have joined forces to protect the biodiversity corridor from the alarming impact of animals such as jaguars, bears, and mountain lions. But camera-trapped photos revealed animals who were clueless facing the border wall and were unable to access its food, water, and former ranges. Moreover, conservationists observed that border lighting deters nocturnal animals, which cause migratory birds that navigate by moonlight or starlight to lose their way. For his part, Jose Manuel Perez, Conservation Director of Cuenca Los Ojos, expressed his concern and questioned the government's ineffectiveness to solve the issue concerning the construction of the border wall that affects numerous wildlife's way of living.
Good news for gaming enthusiasts. Twitch, the popular online service for gamers, is once again holding their in-person convention. TwitchCon 2022 was held in San Diego recently. Our correspondent Mark Marango was there to see how important this was to the Twitch community. Take a look.
We are here today at TwitchCon, where Twitch partners, affiliates, and community members come here to grow their respective channels and to meet new members of the Twitch community. For the first time since 2019, TwitchCon has come back to allow many Twitch community members to come and join a 3-day event filled with games, workshops to help streamers and community members engage with their audience, and to finally meet people that they've only met online. While at the event, different organizations were able to showcase either up-and-coming product that has never been released, or to showcase the young talent on their respective squads to everyone who came along. In addition to that, the community was able to meet and greet some of their favorite Twitch streamers and share in many happy moments. Here, we have an up-and-coming Valorant streamer, Shiro RZ, to share his experience at the event so far. What have you been looking forward to about TwitchCon?
Well, I mean, the last one was in 2019, and I was basically a nobody then. So, this year, I'm just, looking forward to meet a lot more people. It's just so fun. TwitchCon's always a good place to meet people and just make new friends. And all of this, I've just been walking around exploring. It's nice.
Yeah, I know that you've been getting pretty big in the Valorant scene. Have you aside from Grim, have you met any other players or any other orgs about trying to play for them or trying to do a collab with them?
Not really. Yesterday I saw a bunch of the TSM guys and a bunch of other Val creators. It's just cool to meet them and just know them and be friends with them.
And last but not least, what's your favorite Valorant voice line?
Favorite Valorant voice line? Salamat by Neon. When she goes Salamat, thanks, is the best.
Although the rise of streaming on YouTube and Facebook has definitely caught most of the attention, Twitch reminds us that events like these keep the love of the community and Twitch together. Mark Marenko, Matana Agila, International. Trusted, connected, on point.
The Japanese yen hit a 32-year low against the U.S. dollar after official figures showed that prices had risen faster than expected in America. Before regaining some ground, the yen fell to 147.66 against the U.S. dollar. Japanese Finance Minister Shunichi Suzuki announced that the government will take appropriate action against the currency's volatility. Suzuki told the press that they cannot tolerate excessive volatility in the currency market, which is driven by speculative moves. The government is watching currency moves with a strong sense of urgency, he said. In an exceptional move last month, Japan spent almost $20 billion to prop up the country's struggling currency.
Netflix announced its subscription option subsidized by ads will be available in November across different countries as the streaming platform aims to jumpstart stalled growth. The new basic with ad subscriptions will cost $6.99 in the United States, $3 cheaper compared to the no ads basic option. According to a Netflix officer, the streaming giant's new deal is timely as it surpasses both broadcast and cable total TV time in the United States. The ad discounted tier of Netflix will be available in Australia, Brazil, Britain, Canada, France, Germany, Italy, Japan, South Korea, Mexico, Spain, and the United States, having 50 to 30-second long video ads.
Filipino ace pole vault sensation Ernest John or EJ Obiena paid a courtesy call to President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. in Malacanang. The president warmly welcomed Obiena and thanked him for the honor and glory he's giving the country. Obiena holds the third spot in the men's pole vault world ranking after his historic medal finish at the World Athletics Championships last July. Obiena came back to the country for his break before going back to training in preparations for a bid at the 2024 Summer Olympics in Paris, France.
From your president and I think from the rest of the Philippines ay kami nagpapasalamat sa lahat ng iyong ginawa, sa dangal na idinala mo sa inyong bansa. I think that is the greatest tribute that you can give, the greatest service as you are an athlete now that you can give to our country is to bring honor to the Philippines. We look forward to the games in Paris. I hope you do well. If there is anything we can do to help you na maging mas maganda ang inyong resulta at mas maganda ang maging training, lahat ng sabihin niyo sa akin dahil napakahalaga ng iyong ginagawa. So thank you very much and I congratulate not only you but also those of you who have supported our champion.
Tennis sensation Alex Ayala continues to rise. Ayala becomes one of the all-time highest-ranked Filipino tennis players in the Open era. The 17-year-old tennis star jumped to 252nd in the latest Women's Tennis Association or WTA World Ranking to smash into the top 5 of the all-time highest-ranked Filipino tennis players in the Open era. Prior to her recent big leap in the rankings, she already became the highest-ranked female tennis player from the Philippines when she reached 280th last August, a feat that broke the 23-year-old record held by Maricris Fernandez Gents. At 252nd, Ayala is now the 4th highest-ranked Filipino tennis player in the Open era, just behind former Philippine men's tennis team standouts Cecil Mamiit, Eric Taino, and Felix Barrientos. Just how old are you when you came to know Cookie Monster's real name? Well, let's cut the story short. Sesame Street lovers because Cookie Monster's real name is Sid. The famous cookie munching mascot tweeted that though his first name is Sid, he still likes to be called Cookie Monster. Our favorite furry Muppet character's real name was first revealed in a Sesame Street song from 2004 titled The First Time Me Eat Cookie. But then he said that grew to love cookies. Hence, he was nicknamed Cookie Monster.
To make everyone happy, Net25 is inviting you once again to a Mall Together show with some of the network's artists. Join and net together with Kada Umaga hosts Maureen Shrivers, Tony Petgava, Wedge Kujamat, Pia Mago, Diana Menezes, and Emma Tiglao, along with Eric Kizan and Vandolph Kizan of the comedy show Quezon City, and Shopping All the Way hosts Jojo Alejar and Ana De Leon. Also, meet Nico, Jai, and EL of Oh No, It's BO, and the cast of Net25's newest comedy show, Anong Meron Kay Abok, led by comedian Empoy Marquez, Alexa Miro, Yuki Takahashi, Nico Nicolas, Nico Loco, Sofia De Leon, Yo Andrada, and Anthony Ocampo. Veteran broadcaster Corina Sanchez Rojas, host of the network's newest talk show, Corina Interviews, will also grace the Mall show. Let's net together at SM Center Sangandaan in Caloocan City this Sunday, October 16 at 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
Did I say it? Say it. Friday! Now let's take a look back at some historical events that happened on this day, October 14. In 1322, Robert the Bruce of Scotland defeats King Edward II of England, forcing Edward to accept Scotland's independence. In 1943, Josepi Laurel Sr. was inaugurated as president of the Japanese-sponsored Philippine Republic. And in 1927, Sir Roger Moore was born. Moore was the third actor to portray fictional British secret agent James Bond in 7 feature films.
And now to help you start your weekend, here's a quote from J.K. Rowling, a British writer. What is life without a little risk?
Makes one think the riskier, the better the results, right?
Yeah, you know, I'm not a huge fan of YOLO, but you have to be a little braver. You have to be a little bolder. You have to live a little more.
Yeah, exactly. That's where the fun is, actually.
And that is a wrap for tonight's and this week's news. But do catch the latest updates on our social media channels. I'm CJ Hero.
And I'm Nina Richiera Flores saying happy weekend and take care of yourselves. This is Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.